subject expert Dr. Kunal Soni sir. As we all know that it is marked day 2 of our FDP program on a systematic way of research paper writing. This FDP is organized by the efforts of RFI, renowned Research Foundation of India. And on the second day of this, Dr. Kunal Soni sir is here with us. So before we head towards our session, let's have a look on the achievement journey of Dr. Kunal Soni sir. Sir is an associate professor of finance and accounting at School of Management, GSFC University, Vadodara. Sir has a total of 10 years of experience in academics and 3 years of industrial experience. And his qualification, it includes BBA in Finance, MBA in Finance, Qualified Gujarat Set in Management, PhD in Management, Diploma in Foreign Exchange and Risk Management, Postgraduate Diploma in Research and Methodology, and BCom in Accounting and Taxation. Sir has a total of 24 publications in various reputable journals like Scopus, ABDC, UGC-CARE, Web of Science, etc., including a patent in Government of India under the Intellectual Property Right Act 1970, for which Sir had received the loyalty grant for his innovation in finance on the topic called Techno Innovation and Growth of Indian Share Market. Sir had received 3 Best Research Paper Award in various international conferences organized by different academic institutions, sponsored by UGC and AICTE. Sir was awarded with the Best Faculty of Management Department at Parul Institute of Management, Parul University, Vadodara. Sir has been invited 20 plus times by various business schools, UGC, HRDCs, and research institutes across India as a part of the resource person and session chair on the various topics for research, data analysis, tools and techniques, entrepreneurship, skills, and ICT tools. Sir has delivered a training on the different analytical software like SPSS, AMOS, Smart PLS, eViews, Advanced Excel, R programming, etc. Sir has attended more than 20 plus faculty development programs arranged by the IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Vishakhapatnam, Ministry of Human Resource Development, Vadodara Management Association, and many more. Sir has presented more than 19 research papers at various national and international conferences across India and USA, along with 17 seminars and workshops. So with this, it's a really grateful thing for us that a very knowledgeable and extremely highly qualified in his expert area and expertise, Dr. Kunal Soni sir is here with us to guide our all the participants. So without any further delay, I would feel honored to invite sir on the RFI's platform. So sir, please hold the platform. Now the footpace is yours.
Thank you, madam. So good evening, all participants. The discussion for the today's session is having hypothesis testing and development. So just confirm the screen sharing.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So hypothesis testing and design, right? So it is very important topic for all the academicians, and researcher who are looking for, the upliftment in terms of their academic journey and, the gradual development in terms of the research area, with respect to their academic qualification and, in the different stream of academics, where they belongs to. So it is very important, criteria for any researcher to design and test the hypothesis. As far as I understand, and as per my experience towards till today, as far as the research point of view is concerned, so the understanding which of I have it for the particular hypothesis development and design testing. So that is a synchronization process which I always talks about in my every research topics and every talks. which I have delivered till today, and what I have experienced based on my research journey, for publishing the papers into various reputed journal. So simple answer to this particular, not I can say the question, but the matter of understanding that we have to develop as far as the research journey is concerned. So the important test and important part that we all must have to take care as far as the hypothesis testing and design is concerned. So always hypothesis is going to be linked with the objectives of the research, right? So whenever we talks about the hypothesis should always be concerned and relates with the objectives of the research, you know. So objectives of the research will be designed based upon the research problems that we have defined. So I'm going with the reverse process. So let's say this is hypothesis testing that we talks about today. So this is hypothesis testing, which we talks today. And this is the talk of the today, that how the hypothesis should be designed. But now the question is how to frame the hypothesis. What is the relation of hypothesis? So the simple answer to this question is your hypothesis should be based on your objectives. Or rather, I can say you are designing your hypothesis to prove your objectives of the study. Right. So whatsoever objective that you have defined, right? So to prove that objective, you need to define the hypothesis. So this is one aspect. Another aspect is, let's say I have decided the objectives of my study, that is okay. But how these objectives can be framed, how the objectives can be derived out of the study, you know. So the objective can be derived for any of the study based on the problem identification, or else in other word, I can talk it as, research gap, right? Identification of problem, the research gap. So you must have attended one of the talk for this particular faculty development program organized by Research Foundation of India, and it was delivered by one of the, reputed, speaker, Dr. Ankita Jain, right? So you must have gone through the various parameters of the research gap, or I can say problem identification, right? So how you have derived this problem identification and research gap, so out of this entire session, you must have designed and you must have seen it. The idea behind identification of research gap and problem identification is basically came out from the systematic, it came out from the systematic literature review that every researcher will do for their research journey, right? So if at all we talks about the research gap and problem identification, so this research gap and problem identification can be identified, can be defined, can be designed, can be derived with the help of the proper systematic literature review that we will do it for our own study. Now the question is, which literature review we have to do? Which literature review we have to do? Right. So the simple answer to this particular question is, it is based on the title of your research, right? So the title of the research. So ultimately, whatsoever parameters that you will do it for the research journey is basically to prove your title, right? Ultimately, the acceptance and rejection criteria for any good quality research, or if at all you are planning for having some kind of reputed journals for the future. So the acceptance and rejection criteria for any researcher for the research work is completely going, and it is completely based upon the title of the research that particular researcher is defining for their journey. Right. So title of the research is very, very important, because ultimately the researcher are working on to prove the research based on the various facts and figures and what is the history of this particular topic in the past. Because we must need to understand that we in social science or any other field, being a researcher, we are not inventing something. Sorry. We are not inventing something, right? We are not We are not inventing something, right? We are not inventing something, but whatever invention that has been done by particular inventors, we are making some modification, some changes, some some any innovations that has been taken out in this particular things. So we are trying to identify those innovation practices, new practices, and how these practices has been adopted by the society, and in terms of, and if at all the any changes has happening in this particular things, how the society has accepted those changes, and how the psychology of the people have accepted those changes in a positive manner, negative manner, partial manner, mediation manner, right? So we have to identify those things, and based on that, we are making our research work. And many of you have already heard about it. To prove it, the behavior, the perception, and to prove it, we need to define certain variables, right? And that variable is nothing but the objectives that you are deriving, right? Your objective should always define the variables that you need to study for the particular research. And when we talks about the variables, to prove that variable, you need to design your hypothesis. So your hypothesis should always consist the variables that you are trying to test for the particular research. So ultimately, after having 5 to 10 minutes of the talks which I have delivered to you, so ultimately, what is the conclusion that I'm deriving out of this particular discussion is, so ultimately, even the hypothesis is also working on proving the title of the research. So ultimately, whatsoever process that you are doing it, in this entire journey, right, it is for the achievement of this title of the object, research. So the central idea for every aspect that you will going to learn in this particular faculty development program is nothing but to prove the title of the research of the researcher, right? So you must have to prove the title of the research that you are looking for. So this is the core and fundamental aspect that you have to see to it, right? So your title should be proven. The research should always be justified based on the title that you have decided, and according to that, the entire treatment for the research that you need to give it to prove your title. So it is very essential that you should stick to the title. Based on title, you must undergo with the systematic literature review, and that literature review will help it out to find out the research gap or the major problem that you must have to study for the particular society, or the particular industry, or the particular variable that you are looking for. And based on the problem that you have derived, you must have to frame the appropriate objectives to prove that particular study. So this will help the society, to understand what is actually the research is talking about, why the research has been carried out, if at all this research has been carried out, what sort of variables that has been used. So that's why I have already mentioned that your objective should also cover the number of variables that you have to try and test for your research journey. And based on the number of variables that you have applied, you have to frame your hypothesis. And the basic hypothesis is, this is called null hypothesis, and this is called alternate hypothesis, right? So this is called null hypothesis, and this is called alternative hypothesis. Clear? So this is what the basic overview which I have given to you as a part of the hypothesis testing and designing. Right. So if at all I need to start the particular topic, so hypothesis is basically assumption about the population. Can anybody tell me why hypothesis is considered to be the assumption about the population? What is the reason for calling this statement, if at all we talks about the hypothesis? Can anybody answer why hypothesis is called the assumption about the population and not the concrete answer for the population? Why it is assumption? You can unmute yourself and you can answer, because I cannot see the chat box. You are free to unmute yourself and have a healthy discussion. Yeah, anyone?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Yeah.
It hypothesis is an assumption about the population because there is a chance of rejection or acceptance.
That is the
Of
only reason? So it's
there is a
okay. It's okay. It's okay if it is the chances of acceptance and rejection. So let's say if I have null and alternate, right? So they both are, interdependent on each other. Let's say this is going to be accepted. So this is going to be rejected. And if this is going to be rejected, then this is going to be accepted. Right. So
yes, sir.
either of them is going to accept and reject, right?
Yes,
But my
yes, sir.
question is
Good
why
evening, sir.
this is called assumption? Yeah.
Yeah, good
Yes,
evening,
madam.
sir.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, this is Priyanka Jankar this side.
Okay.
So, means hypothesis is nothing but it is we are checking or tested something based on some evidence. If it is true, then it will go, means we can move forward. Otherwise, we have to stuck the thing in that place.
What is this evidence called, madam? You are nearest to the answer, but what is this evidence called?
Evidence is nothing but when we are checking something, means is
Let's
it
say
correct
if
or
I'm
not?
conducting one study about consumer, behavior, right?
Yeah.
So what is the evidence for this particular study?
Sorry, sir, I'm not getting. Can you tell
That's the
once?
If at
research.
all if at all I'm conducting one study
Yeah.
about consumer perception or consumer behavior, right? So out of this study, what is the evidence according to your answer?
Yeah, we need to check the means how many consumers are there, means what they are means what we can say that
So,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, any other answers, please?
is
Very
that the research
Yeah.
that
this.
is going to happen?
Yes.
Anvesha this side. I'm asking, is that the research or the survey that we are going to conduct?
Right. So out of this survey, what you are getting, madam?
We will
Responses.
get the accurate data.
That data is called population or something else?
Responses from the sample size.
Yes, sample.
Yeah.
Yes, it will be sample.
Right. So the correct terminology that we have to use sample, and due to the sample, you call it as an assumption of, so hypothesis is nothing but hypothesis is an assumption about the population because you are making from the samples. I hope it is clear.
Yeah.
It is, sir.
If at all I'm studying the census of the population, for the counting of the population conducted by the government of India every year. So this census is nothing but the population. So at that time, whenever government is publishing those reports, so government is not never use this term that is called hypothesis, H0 and H1. Why? Because government is not studying the sample, but they are counting the population. That means they are covering each and every parameters of the affected area, industry, or the parameters that they want to study. Right. So this is the one of the best example about the population study. So whenever you are going for population study, you need not require the hypothesis. But if at all you are going for sample study, you must have to design the hypothesis, because let's say this is a population of Indore, let's say 25 lakhs people. And if at all I want to do the survey, am I able to make a survey for, 25 lakhs people out of the Indore city? It's not possible practically, right? And if at all we need to go for it, it consumes a lot of time. At the same time, it consumes many expenses, many people's efforts that you have to put. And at the same time, after conducting the data collection, there might be possibility that due to the range of lot of time, there might be some other evidence, events, or some modifications, some inventions that has been arrived into the market, and due to which your data is going to be outdated at the time when you have completed your survey. Right. So it is very important to understand the hypothesis. So hypothesis is basically the assumption about the population that you are deriving based on the sample study. Right. So out of that, in our city, if at all I want to see that the 25 lakhs people, about their perception for the online banking, so I might go for 500 to 1,000 sample, and whatsoever results that we will derive based on acceptance and rejection, right? I can consider that if the 500 or 1,000 people in Indore, majority of having this assumption, so I can also consider that the 25 lakhs people are also having the same assumption. And that assumption, that doesn't mean that every people have the same assumption, but it consider that majority of having this opinion. Clear? I cannot say everyone. If at all, I'm going for the hypothesis. Clear to everyone? You cannot claim something on it, but you can suggest something on it. Whenever you conduct any research, you cannot claim anything, but yeah, you always suggest anything out of the research. I hope I'm making sense. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes.
And
Yes,
that
sir.
is
Yes, sir.
why, yes, thank you. That is why it is called the characteristics of the population. So why it is considered to be characteristics of the population? So the simple answer to this particular statement, that we have already decided that we would not be able to conduct the entire population study, and for which we have to go for certain samples, and whatever results that we are receiving for that particular samples, based on that results of the sample, we are making the assumption about that population, that if at all this sample is having this result, then there might be the possibility that the population is also having the same results. And that's why this sample is representative of the characteristics of the population, right? So whatsoever results, whatsoever things, whatsoever some classic innovations, opinions, needs, desire that you have noticed out of this 500 to 1,000 samples from the Indore city, you can conclude that this would be the characteristics of the rest of the population from the Indore city. You might have seen, whenever the election is going on, right? So the many news channels are making these surveys, right? Opinion poll. Which government will come? UPA will come, NDA will come, who will come, right? Or any other third party will have the chances to come. So they are making the opinion poll, right? They are making one headlines, सूत्रों के हवाले से खबर. You might have seen it. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Right. So what is this sutra? That sutra is nothing but the sample study that you have done. Is it clear? So based on the sample, they are reflecting that things also, that we have asked the 500 or 600 people out of the Indore city, that who is going to make the government for this time. So this is called the sample study that we have to do it. And based on sample, let's say 500 or 600. So whatsoever opinion that they have received for the next governments to be framed for the Indore city or for the MP, Madhya Pradesh, right? So they are making the assumptions, they are making predictions that this party is having the better chances to frame a government. So that is why it is called the characteristics. So they have studied 600 people of Madhya Pradesh, and now they have been reached to the conclusion that this is the mood of the people, this is the mind of the people, right? So there is a chances that the people of MP will select this particular government, as a part of the next term for the assembly election or for the parliament election, right? So this is what its characteristics, and it must be identified before analysis. Why? Because you must have to derive the target population, right? Let's say if at all I want to see, my objective is, who will frame the government of, in MP. So I already know that the state of Madhya Pradesh is going to be my target population. But can I make this survey of the Madhya Pradesh people, let's say 5 to 6 crores of population? So it's not possible to go and ask everyone, what is your opinion, right? So what I can do is, from the different areas like, Indore city, Bhopal, whatsoever the other cities that Madhya Pradesh is having. So people will carry out 5 to 6 big cities. So 100 samples will be collected from each city. And then finally, the people can frame out what is the mind of the people for the government, right? So this is called sample study. But if at all the MP government is making counting for the population, so this is called population study. And if at all we talks about this hypothesis, hypothesis can be never be framed for the population, but it is always be going to be framed for the sample study. I hope it is clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. So it is very important to have your target audience, target population, target area where you have to study. If at all you are going for secondary study, let's say somebody is going for the financial analysis. So financial analysis in terms of the industry and company should be finalized, so that whenever you are, jumping into data collection, it is not possible. Let's say if you are planning to have, identifying the impact of GST, right, on the textile industry. So you are not in a position to get the data for every company, and you will try to identify the each and every company's effect. Although you can do it, but it is very time consuming, and you will not prefer to go for it. Because if at all your work is getting over for having the sample of 15 and 20 company, then why to go for 500 companies, right? It is very time consuming, and it is a waste of energy, right? So people have come out to the solution. Instead of going for the every parameters of every industry, let's pick out, or let's take out few parameters, and with the study of those parameters we can make an inference about the populations of the study that we are doing it. Is it clear? Completely okay till now? Any questions
Yes,
till
sir.
now?
Yes, yes.
If at all you can ask.
No, sir.
No questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Right. Okay. So let's go to the next one. So yeah, so testing of hypothesis. How to test the hypothesis? So it is an assumption about population parameters. So obviously we have already seen it, right? That is called population mean, right? So there are two aspects. You must have gone through the descriptive statistics. So there is mean, median, mode, right? Let's say if I'll talk about the descriptive statistics in terms of population and sample. So the mean of population can be derived by mu, and sample mean can be derived by x bar. Clear? So this is how you can differentiate between population mean and sample mean. So let's say if you are taking mean of 500 people as a sample, then this is called x bar, which is called sample mean. But if at all you are taking off the opinion of 25 lakhs people across the Indore city, then this is called the mu. So basically hypothesis is working on the mean values. You might be aware about two tests that would be the next agenda for this faculty development program, where you will undergo with the analysis of the few aspects for the next session. So there are two aspects. Let's say you have to go for a parametric test. validation of the data, right? So whatsoever data you will collect either through primary research or through secondary research, right? If at all researchers are going for the primary research, they have to go for the survey data. They might have to conduct a survey, they might have to frame out the questionnaire, and based on the questionnaire they will collect the data about the particular opinion, behavior aspects, right? On whatever data that the particular researcher is collecting, they must have to validate. Validate means you must be aware about the reliability of the data. Anybody is having idea what is reliability of the data?
Sir, I think same situation with same method.
No, you must have heard about the pilot
It
study.
is reliability is the it is the extent to which we can depend on the responses that have been collected from the samples.
Perfect. And that is why we are first doing the
Nice.
pilot study, right? So let's say you are going for the primary research or secondary research. Let's say you are going for primary research through questionnaire. You must have planned 500 samples. But before collecting 500 samples and finalizing 500 samples, you first must collect the 50 samples and do the pilot study. So pilot study is nothing but all the planning and plotting that you have decided for your research work. You must have to try first on these 50 samples, and you must need to check the other parameters of the data, that whether this data is fitting to your research. Does your purpose and objective is really getting served? If yes, you can continue for rest of the 500 samples. But if at all you feel that there is some modification is required, there are some changes which needs to be incorporated, right? Then you must have to stop your research work at the 50 samples. You need to identify the reason for not having the result up to the mark, why the reliability of the data has not been proved, and you need to find out the solution. You need to again go for literature review. You need to again revise your problem identification, objectives of your study, reframe your questionnaire, or reframe your secondary data in terms of the variables. And again, you need to start collecting the data from the scratch, right? Again, you need to go for pilot study of again 50 samples. And now if the pilot study turns out to be the result in terms of the expectation of the research criteria, then you must continue and finish your 500 sample study, and you can apply the rest of the data analysis tools and techniques, and finally you can conclude your research, right? And to do this pilot study, whether your data is up to the mark, there is a criteria for reliability which is called Cronbach alpha. You must have heard about it, Cronbach alpha. So in SPSS, if at all you are going for it, so your Cronbach alpha should always come 0.7. And if at all your Cronbach alpha is not coming 0.7 at the pilot study, you need to find out the reason for not it's coming, right? Your data is not highly reliable. That means your data study will be possible, but the application of the data in terms of the societal importance, in terms of the, the reliability and the usability for the market is not meeting the criteria. So your reliability should always turns out to be greater than 0.7, that is Cronbach alpha. If it's not coming out, you must to reframe from questionnaire to objective to problem identification with the help of proper literature review. And once your reliability will be done, you will start making your collection of data, you will finish your data, and then you will be in a position to apply appropriate statistical tools, as we have already discussed in the previous slide, that is parametric and non-parametric. And madam has rightly mentioned few tests, that all tests can be applicable, right? And based on this test, you must have to conclude your research. So that research can be concluded based on the p-value. This p-value is very important in terms of the acceptance and rejection of null hypothesis. So if at all, when the null hypothesis is going to be accepted and when the alternative hypothesis is going to be accepted, so the simple answer to this question is the null hypothesis is going to be accepted when the p-value turns out to be greater than 0.05, and if the p-value turns out to be 0.05 less than 0.05, then alternate is going to be accepted. And what is the meaning of null and alternative? So null says no difference, no impact. Is it clear? and alternate says, yes, there is a difference and there is an impact. I hope I'm clear what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Any queries till now? Or any suggestions? Anywhere you failed a problem in your research up to this level? You can discuss if at all you faced any difficulties. Is it clear to all of you? Shall I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So null and alternative hypothesis is very, very important. So null, and sometimes there is a misconceptions among the researcher. Sometimes what happens, I have noticed many guides, many researcher are, training the research scholar in terms of, let's say if research scholar is coming out with these results, so they are saying that your result is not up to the mark, your result has no, your research has no results. Why your research is no result? So they are making argument that your research is proving no impact. So I'm sorry to say that, but there is no difference, there is no impact, and the acceptance of alternate null hypothesis is also be the result, right? Because you cannot look for only this kind of results, because this is called the partiality towards the research. Because the simple argument for this thing is, if at all you are knowing that there is an impact for every variables of the study, then my simple argument to this particular arguments towards the research scholar is that if at all you know that there is an impact, then what is the need for doing for the survey? What is the need for testing your variables? What is the need for collecting samples? What is the need for designing hypothesis? And what is the need for deciding whether null is accepting and alternate is accepting? If at all you are always looking for this one, then this is not called a research, right? Because research is the probability, that is called p-value. Research always works on probability. So probability either can be greater than or either can be less than. In both the case, your result is correct, right? I cannot say that I always have to reject the null hypothesis, and I always cannot say that I always have to reject the alternate hypothesis. Here I have to reject alternate. It is by mistake I have written null, but it is alternate, right? So I cannot say that particular things in every terms, right? Every result is a result. I cannot be biased. I cannot have the monotonous opinion that this should become and this should not become, right? Otherwise, I'm not a right researcher, because if at all I know that every result is behaving in this pattern, then there is no research problem. Why I'm saying this? If there is a research problem, then there is a research, then there is a sample, then there is hypothesis, then there is a evaluation, and then there is a assumptions about the population. But if you know the answer, there is no need for research, right? If at all you know where you have to go by your car, you don't need to ask anyone. But if at all you don't know, then you have to ask. But if at all you know where you have to go, then also you are asking to the people where I have to go. Then I think it is a foolishness, right? I hope I'm clear what I'm saying. Clear? So every result is a research, whether it is acceptance of null or whether it is acceptance of alternate. Clear to all of you? Everyone?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Yeah. So this is one of the assumption that, this is null hypothesis. As I told the parametric test is always works out for the mean values, right? So here is the average marks of the class in accounting subject is considered to be 81. So average means, let's say I have the students from 1 to 100. So one student has 81, one student has 78, one is having 75, one is having 57, another one is having 98, 99. So out of these all results, the average which I have received is 81. Now I want to check that the average responses which I have received, they are nearest to the average value of 81, or there is having high deviations. So high deviation means, if at all average is 81, so the nearest value is 69 to 90, right? So if at all my response is in this range, 69 to 90, then I think the null hypothesis is going to be accepted, because null says there is no difference and alternate says there is a difference. So that is the difference. Means if the students ranges are coming from 40 to 100 marks, so this is a huge variation. There is a huge range. And if at all multiple respondents are falling into this category, then I can say there is a difference between the mean value. If at all the mean value is 81, but still every observation or every samples are not within the range of the samples value, sample average. So this is called the, and if at all you are doing this kind of test, so you might have learned, you might will be learn that is where you have to apply one sample t-test, right? So this is going to be applicable when you have only one variable. So here is one variable is the marks of the students in accounts, right? So if at all I want to check that is there any deviations of the marks among the students, so that means all the students are within the range or the range is deviating from the top to lowest, right? If they are deviating from top to lowest, then alternate is going to be accepted because it is not matching with the nearest value of the average. And if at all the variation is not there, that means the values are falling in this range, then alternate is going to be accepted because they are within the range of average. That means there is no difference. Is it clear? So whenever you talks about hypothesis, when you talks about assumption, and based on assumption, whatever decisions you are making, so this kind of decisions are always going to be happen based on these parameters. Is it clear? Yes, sir. So significance level, right? Why we take significance level? So significance level for every streams are going to differ for social science, for medical, and for others. So in medical science, usually significant level is 1%. Social science is 5%. So why this difference of 4% is there? So the simple answer to this question is you are testing sample and based on sample, you are making assumption about the population. So in social science, it is basically the science of human behaviors. So here the human opinion behavior might get deviated. But right. But if at all we talks about in medical science, they are basically working on chemical reactions, for making the medicines or something. So here chemical science is working with human bodies, not human opinion. Right. So here the deviation is not much accepted because if the deviation is high for making the medicines, which is grabbed by the human bodies for various diseases. So the side effects for this medicine is going to be very high. But if at all we are talking about human science, social science in terms of management and commerce field, then the people opinions are keep changing for time and time again. Before 1 hour, person will say something. After 1 hour, if person will say something. If at all he or she will be influenced or came into the influence of some other parameters. So it keep fluctuating, right? You don't have any hold on it. But chemical are always going to behave in particular manner. So if chemical is showing 10% variation, then definitely it will show. And if chemical is only showing 1%, then it will only 1% variation will show. That means the 1% variation is not hazardous for the human body, but 10% variation is hazardous to the human body, right? So we must have to keep into that. The significance level is nothing but the chances of error, right? The chances of error out of the results that you have derived or received. That means let's claim it that the p-value is less than 0.05 and there is a difference of opinion. And based on this result, I am making the assumption about the population. So if somebody is receiving your result and they are studying your result, so they also should have the idea that these p-value acceptance rejection you have decided based on 5% error or 1% error. So they will also take a decision whether how much reliable this result are. Is it 95% accurate or is it 99% accurate? Right. Although they are saying acceptance rejection, but this acceptance and rejection has been considered with the calculation of how much percentage of errors. That is called significance level. And this is how the distribution curve. So this is called significance level, right? Which is called 0.05 on both the side, right? So if at all your p-value comes less than 0.05, they always fall into this category. And this is called acceptance hypothesis of null hypothesis. That means your p-value is always going to be greater than 0.05, then they will fall into this category, right? So this is a rejection region of null hypothesis, and this is acceptance region of null hypothesis. And whenever we talks about research conclusion findings, we always talks in terms of the acceptance and rejection of null hypothesis and not for the alternate. Is it clear? Okay. So different test wise hypothesis. So this is normality. So here you can check this p-value. So all the p-values are 0.000, which is less than 0.05. So if less than 0.05, I already told you that less than 0.05 will fall into which region of null hypothesis. So this 0.000 will come here. So this is the rejection region of null hypothesis. So if null is going to be rejected, which is going to be accepted in this region? That is called alternative. That is called alternative. So alternative is accepted. Henceforth, we can conclude that the data are not normally distributed. For further analysis, you need to go for non-parametric test. If in normality, the null is accepted. And if the p-value comes here, let's say here 0.200. So this is greater than, this is greater than null p-value. If p-value greater than 0.05, that is greater than 0.05 level. So null is going to be accepted. So the data is normally distributed, and here you have to go for parametric test. Is it clear to all of you? And okay, everyone? Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is how you have to go for it. So for every test, you have to check the p-values, right? So over here also, this is paired sample t-test. So you can see this, it is less than 0.05. So it is in the rejection of null. So acceptance of alternative. So I can say that this is the jump size of the sports person before training and after training. So I want to check, is there any impact of training on the people? So I can see that there is a significant impact. Is it clear? Because p-value is less than 0.05, so it is falling into rejection of null. That means we have to accept alternate. Fine. Thank you so much. So now I'm making this platform open for the question answer. If at all you have any questions, please ask me. Yeah, please, everyone. Please let me know if at all anything you have not understood or any questions if at all you have it.
Sir, I have one question. I'm Dr. Navleen.
Nice to meet you, madam. Thank you. Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have one question. Sir, I just wanted to know, like, if in the social sciences or the management, we want to know about the behavior or the perception of the people related to the services or the product, there is always a biasness in that. So,
Yeah.
because at one time the people would behave like, maybe positive, another time they would be behaving the another way. So, can we say the results are reliable?
This is called time-based study. That's why I told you, how much time you consume for your research. Let's say I was talking about you study 25 lakh samples from the Indore city. So the
Yes,
time
sir.
duration is too high, and the people opinion are quite, quite getting changed. Right.
Right, sir.
So this kind of data will not having helpful. But if at all your study is only focusing on like paired sample t-test, you want to
Yes,
see the
sir.
before analysis and after analysis for such particular event effect, then you must
Yes,
have
sir.
to go for it. There is a particular study on that. And in
Right, sir.
finance, so there is always a stock market data where the people have to check the effect of particular thing. Let's say GST has been introduced, so people have done many study on various industry to check the impact of one of the GST effect. Right
Right,
now,
sir.
by one of the paper has been accepted at SRIC IIT Kanpur. So I
Okay.
had put the paper on checking the impact of GST on MSME sector.
Right, sir.
Right. So that is how you can proceed. But for that, you have to check the surroundings. For what you are conducting research, what is the objective of conducting and research, and based on that, you have to justify and plan out the entire parameters. And I told the hypothesis has relation with objective, objective has relation with problems, problem has relation with systematic literature review, and after that, people can be able to give the title. People are generally starting with title and then doing research, but I feel
Yeah.
this is not the right process.
Yeah, that's not
You
right.
just have to select areas and problems. You need to find out the various things. Based on that, you can modify your title. It is my experience for my every research paper. I have to modify
Fine,
my
fine.
title 25 times minimum.
Okay. Okay, fine, 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 fine.
Right? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a
Thank
lot. It was a wonderful session, sir.
thank you, madam. So where are you from, madam?
I'm from Chandigarh, sir.
Okay, nice to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah, same here, sir.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, Anjali Chandra Babu, madam. Bandana Chakrabarti, madam, you must have raised the hand, so please ask your questions. Bandana Chakrabarti, madam. Anjali Babu, madam. Any questions from these people? So you can unmute yourself and you can ask the questions, or any other people who have the query, please.
Sir,
So yes, please, sir.
sir, it is possible to do under samples by using non-parametric test.
Yeah, definitely. Why not? Your data should behave. Your data will decide whether you have to go for parametric and non-parametric. I or you cannot decide. If your normality check will says that your data is normal, go for parametric. If your normality check says that your data is not normal, you can't go for parametric.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Right? Okay.
Thank you.
Any other queries? Yeah, thank you so much, all the participants, for your patient listening and for giving me the platform to share my knowledge on the research hypothesis testing.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much,
Research
sir.
Foundation of India, Ajay sir, Saurabh sir, Nikita madam for coordinating this wonderful faculty development program, and all the
Thank you so much,
participants all
sir.
the best for the future learning for the coming sessions. I hope the journey will be enjoyable and you must utilize your research knowledge for the further aspect of your academic journey. Thank you so much. Yeah, Nikita
Definitely,
madam.
sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
All
you
the
so
best.
much, sir, for such a wonderful
sir.
session. It was a really informative one for all of us. Even the best part of the session is that, as I can observe, you are sitting in your car, even after your busiest schedule, you are
Yeah,
spending your precious
I have
time on
another time
RFI.
for Indian Society Training and Development
So
at the
that shows that how much of cooperative and concentrating you are towards your work. So thank you so much, sir, for your
Thank you.
such a great efforts for this session on our RFI's platform. And
Thank
thanks to all your participants for being patient and cooperative listener during the whole session. Hope we'll meet again. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks
you.
to all the organizers also.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.